I think that patent numbers is certainly an indicator. It is objective, it is quantifiable, and you can have concrete data based on a lot of different measurements, like by year, by country, by technology, by companies. And so it's an easy way to get an overview of the patent landscape. But it certainly is not the only indicator. For example, take a company. They might have some innovations, but their strategy might be to file only a handful of patents on the crown jewels, the most important aspects of their work in the past year. Other companies may take a more broader, comprehensive approach in filing as many patents as possible. We certainly are aware of companies that file thousands of applications a year. And so the number of patents in and of itself is not an accurate or a comprehensive metric of the level of innovation for a company or on a country level. But I think that other factors such as patent citations, how often is a given patent cited by others when they file their own applications, can also be an indicator because it's what people are looking at as they consider what do we invent on, what do we build on based on existing technologies that are out there. So that's certainly one indicator. I think another indicator that countries often cite, including the US and China, is the level of R&D spend. How much is the country spending on a particular R&D in what industries? And that's certainly an indicator of the level of innovation and creativity. But that in and of itself also does not tell you how much innovation is actually coming out from those investments. You may spend millions of dollars for many years to develop a drug to cure cancer. You may ultimately never reach that drug. So even though the R&D cost might be very high, the level of innovation that has actually occurred to deliver something that is innovative and helpful has not really occurred. That's also a very high-risk industry because it takes a long lead time period and deep level of research to perhaps hit one drug based on 10 or 20 years of research by a huge team, as opposed to an industry like digital communications or social media, where you can just come up with inventions so quickly overnight. So the number of patents in and of itself does not tell you a full picture about the level of innovation or creativity for a country, for a company, for an individual, but I think it's certainly one indicator. There are other things that you consider when you think about how valuable are the patents. When you look at China, you have very high patent numbers. Patent filings are reaching 2 million a year at the Chinese Patent Office, SIPO, and they're certainly filing a lot of international patent applications as well. But how you value that volume of patents is less clear and it's more subjective. The definition of value in and of itself presents a challenge because what's valuable to me or company X may not be as valuable to the next person or company Y. The level of value can be measured, for example, by is it something that solves a long-felt or long-standing problem, like curing an incurable disease? Do you measure the value by how far-reaching or wide applicability it has, for example, social media or digital communications? Or do you value a patent based on is it a breakthrough or is it a mere incremental improvement? Do you value a patent based on how much impact you have, whether it's impacting the way people live and communicate, or whether it's a way of helping people, whether it's medical services or a way of traveling around the world? So it's lots of different relative measurements of value of patents. There's also the commercial aspect, obviously. How much revenue can you generate based on those patents? It can be through licensing activities. You might license other people under your patents, and they may give you licensing revenue, whether it's a lump sum or ongoing. You may sell the patent outright to someone who's interested in your patent. You may use your patent as a collateral to secure a loan. You may use patents in so many ways, perhaps cross-licensing if you want to access a certain market. You may use your patent, especially if you are selling a commercial product covered by your own patent, to have exclusivity in the marketplace for a number of years to stop your competitor from selling those competitive products. So even if you just look at the commercial angle, there are many different ways how a patent can be valued in its importance. So the short answer is there are many different aspects of how you measure innovation by looking at patents and by its impact. And certainly if you look at a country like China that is growing at a very fast pace with a very high focus on increasing technological development, it is currently one of the top 5 busiest patent offices in the world. They are certainly interested in increasing the level of research and development, original ideas developing within China. So I think you will continue to see the patent numbers rise and the IP assets growing in China. In my opinion, patents play a critical role in promoting research and development. I cannot imagine in this knowledge-based global economy that people would invest as much money and resources into research and creating new ideas if there was no intellectual property protection. Imagine today wiping out the idea of patent protection. How many companies would be motivated, and how would they get the funds to conduct the research? I think patents provide a powerful incentive for companies and countries to invest in innovation and to promote innovation. And patents are one form of intellectual property protection. You can certainly protect in other ways, like trade secrets, for example. You can get design patents, you can get copyrights, but patents give you exclusivity for a limited duration under the law, and it's powerful because it provides protection against independent development. It doesn't matter that someone else independently developed and tried to seek a patent on the same idea. If you were the first to file and you have the patent, then you have that exclusive monopoly for the authorized period of time. That level of promotion and encouragement that the patent system provides, I think is really across the board, whether you're looking at United States, China, or Europe. Even in the United States, under the pro-innovation legislation several decades ago, the country created a specialized national appellate court to handle all patent litigation, and it's located right in town in Washington, D.C., right next to the White House. And that court was created to provide uniformity and consistency in protecting and enforcing patent rights. I think China also sees a great value in protecting intellectual property. And certainly they have specialized courts in China to handle IP cases. The number of patent cases are increasing in China. And in Europe, they are forming the Unified Patent Court to help with the coordinated enforcement within the European region. And so I think really across the world, you are seeing patents play a critical role and an important role, and I don't see that going away anytime soon. I believe that patents are very important to China as well as other countries, including the United States. patents play a very important role in promoting innovation and protecting that. And also, it plays a great role in sharing knowledge. Once people file a patent application, the contents of that application is shared with the world at 18 months, whether the patent ultimately issues on that idea or not. And by giving earlier access to that idea before the patent even issues, you're enabling others to build upon existing and past ideas so that you don't have to wait until the patent issues for that to be published and to be shared. As a country becomes more innovative, there's naturally more incentive to provide stronger patent protection and intellectual property protection to protect the ideas that are coming out from your countries, to give the power and the reward to those companies who have invested many years of research obtaining those patents. If you look at developing countries, there is a greater tendency to focus on catching up to the rest of the world. And so certainly that trend has occurred in many instances, including countries like Japan and Korea. If you look at those countries several decades ago, as they were transforming from developing countries to some of the most innovative nations in the world, you will see that there is increasing level of awareness and enforcement and protection of intellectual property rights within those countries. It is a natural course that developing countries follow, and I think that China is also following that path of transformation. When one recognizes that the current modern patent system in China is only about 30 years old, you have to appreciate that the level of growth and the change in China is quite remarkable. And it's probably developing and transforming at a much faster speed than Japan and Korea have in the past, as well as on a far greater scale for obvious reasons of its size. But we're also living in a world where technology is changing much more rapidly than it did several decades ago. Electronic products do not have life cycles of 5 to 10 years. You're lucky if you get several years out of a phone. There are new generations of products being developed all the time. And so in this global economy where the change of pace is so quick, and in this economy where the valuation of companies are often based on perhaps more than 90% of the valuation being based on intangibles, including intellectual property, and some of the high-tech industries, you can see that the valuation is 100% almost on intellectual property and the ideas without having concrete, tangible products. Sometimes they may not even own office buildings. And so we're living in a completely different world than we were several decades ago. And so within that framework, looking at China and how fast it's developing, how quickly it's trying to adapt and to the pressures around the world of closing the gap between foreign companies and Chinese companies when you look at things like the 13th five-year plan, closing the technology gap, and to foster innovations in key areas, including alternative energy. Those are really critical to China, and I think that you will see continued focus on technology and intellectual property rights in China. It's difficult for me to imagine a world under the current framework that you can effectively foster innovation without intellectual property incentive, especially for technologies that are complex or takes a long time to develop, or technologies that are less certain that it will succeed. I believe that without proper and very strong patent protection, that you can effectively foster innovation. It would be very difficult for a company, even if they had a great idea, to get enough funding and the capital together and people interested in investing in being on that team to invest years of research without the certainty of exclusive rights, that you will reap the fruits in a predictable manner. And again, I think it's a function of how do you encourage the progress of the science and the arts? It goes back to the Constitution. And there is something that the society gives in return for the work and the ingenuity of invention. And by providing that incentive, you enable the scientists and the researchers and the young people who have bright creative ideas to invest their time and energy to work on those things and to then share with the rest of the world. And again, you don't hold exclusive rights to those ideas forever. It's only for a limited duration, 20 years from filing. And then after that, the whole world has free access to those ideas. And so I think that intellectual property is really a bedrock of innovation when you think about not only the US, but in looking at China. All of the scientists and the inventors and programmers and innovative people that I've met there, they do believe that having patent rights at the end of the road or being able to hold a process and protect it as a trade secret, it provides value for them to continue to create and to innovate. I believe that patents can be valuable throughout the inventive process. In the beginning, once you've come up with the inventive idea, even if you don't have it implemented in a product or even if you have not really developed it fully, I think initially, once you have enough to file a patent application, that patent pending status can give you value. Perhaps it can be a source to attract further funding for a startup especially. But it can also enhance the reputation and the valuation of your company when you have patents pending in your portfolio. Further down the process, when you're actually through the development process, you're ready to have a commercial product launched in the marketplace. If you have a patent that's issued, you can have that patent really work for your company, meaning that you can exclude competitors from introducing similar products in the marketplace to give you market exclusivity. And particularly in certain industries, being the first market entry is really important. And so it can be a powerful tool, whether it's in the beginning stages or the later stages of development. If you look at globally, the fastest growing patent filing areas have been in digital communications, computers, pharmaceuticals, and medical devices. China is similar. There have been lots of filings, especially in the recent years, and they focus on computers, telecommunications, chemicals, and machinery. But again, the pure numbers of filings in particular industry may not indicate exactly how important that industry might be. What is driving the filing of patent applications in those industries? Do you see a huge market potential? Is it a source of a brand new creative product that hasn't been on the market before? Do you see a huge profit potential? Because the margin might be really big right now. There may be a lot of different indicators, but I think what is important for people to keep in mind is when you file patent applications, you're not doing it really for pure numbers or statistics. The patents really have to work for your company, meaning that it is aligned with your strategic goals. and objectives. Is it covering your important commercial products? Does it have the power to exclude your competitors from where you want to go in 5 to 10 years? And your business objectives and the markets are evolving. And so is your portfolio being aligned with those changing objectives and marketplace? It takes a lot of money and time and resources to prepare and file a patent application, as well as maintain it, because after it issues, you have to pay the maintenance fees in each of the countries that you have patents issued in. So it is an ongoing investment, and it is a high investment, especially for smaller to medium-sized companies with smaller budgets. And so whether you focus in a particular industry, what is really important is that you focus on the quality and the value of those patents with respect to your company's goals and objectives. China is growing in many areas. As I mentioned, some of those industries in computers and telecommunications, chemicals, machinery. And it is really focused on being able to process that increasing volume of patent applications. I believe that currently SIPO, according to some statistics, has about 9,000 patent examiners, which is quite similar to the US Patent Office. And our patent office in the United States has been around for several hundred years, and SIPO has been around for several decades. And it's growing at a very fast pace to be able to absorb and process the rising tide of new applications coming out from individuals and companies. And so as China continues to focus on transforming itself from made in China to innovated in China, I think the value and the role and the importance of patents will only grow. And it'll be very interesting to see how quickly that occurs, and how actively multinational companies outside of China really invest into the Chinese IP system.